Yeah.
It's a nice college.
Yeah.
Kids still think about
The rescheduling.
I went there.
Practices.
Not for, I graduated from my state, but I was
Yeah.
there for 2 years.
Yeah. Well, actually, they've had really good men's baseball teams. They had a lot of players from
Yes,
like the Caribbean or something at one
Yes,
time. And
yes.
so they had a really strong, I don't
Are
know what
they
they,
a D3 school or
I don't know. I think they're NAIA or something like that.
isn't that weird now? So you can recruit heavily if you're not, they have different rules.
Well, you can recruit D3. It just, I think a lot of them have like, you can't.
Daughter just does, I do part and rec with her for now because of scheduling and I have some coaches that I coach with, but my youngest is doing travel this year with the Bexley team and then my oldest is traveling. Lacrosse there for a bit was like, and now like
All right,
lacrosse and baseball seems to be getting the numbers. So that's good.
Yeah.
we are recording.
Okay. Welcome everybody to our new senior center. It's really nicely done. It's very impressive how you guys fix this up. You never know it was a gas station at one time.
No, you would not.
Can I have a motion to call the meeting to order? Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. Call the roll, Ann Brennan.
Here.
Claire Sabellis, Jessica Sparks,
Here.
Joanne Pickrell,
Here.
Roger Carroll here. Okay, Mike, the next thing, and Barb Griner.
All right. Barb, how you doing?
I just wanted to leave.
Are you,
Lock the door.
are you done with this retirement?
I
job?
am.
Well, I think it's fairly fitting that we are doing a retirement.
I know. In my new
A
office.
retirement in the new office. For those of you who don't know, Barb is actually coming back in 2 months, 3 months. 2 months, 3 months. 2 months on June 6th. And we'll
Yes.
be working part-time in the senior center with Kristen. So it's sort of fitting that we're doing this here, the one time we're doing a regular meeting in the senior center.
Yeah.
But we have some, obviously we want to take a moment to recognize Barb and her accomplishments over the past 33 years of service to our community and to this department. We got a couple of things that we're going to read off, but before we do that, I just want to say a few things about Barb and the impact that she has had on this community and this department and our staff and myself personally. Obviously, Barb's reputation precedes her in this community. She has, on a professional level, done so many things that some of you may or may not know about, but I'll share some of them with you. The lacrosse program that we all get to see and enjoy is a brainchild of Barb from 20 plus years ago, probably at this point. Bringing that to the city at a youth level and sort of fostering it with, gosh, why am I drawing a blank on her name?
Jillian.
Jillian, fostering with Jillian from a youth program, and as her kids sort of went older, fostering that into the what was a club sport then for a while with the schools before it became a varsity sport. Obviously her work with the Harvest Festival and seeing that from its very early stages and running that for many, many years. I found out recently through this retirement process that we used to have a synchronized swimming,
Yes.
which Barb brought to the department.
About 3 years, yeah, you can believe it. We competed. And it was amazing. One of the comments on Facebook was Jean Schultz, who came. Anything I did is I just answered the phone. And they go, can I do this? And I go, sure. Yeah, you can do this. Bowling team.
Bowling team.
Yeah, John did that though. John did the bowling team.
Yeah.
I fluffed that off on that.
The bowling team. What else have we discussed? Field hockey.
Yeah.
Bringing field hockey and the youth field hockey program. Frankly, it goes, the list goes on and on of the accomplishments Barb has had and the impact that she's had on our community. And it doesn't stop with her specific role with the department. What she's done with Darn is, I don't know how else to put it. It's amazing the work that they have done. And Barb has been with Darn since its beginning. She's been sort of our conduit to Darn as a department. And whether it's raising money to help, pay people's rent or pay their water bill or keep them in their house, or make sure they have food on their table, or make sure they have presents during the holidays.
Yeah.
Barb has had a profound
I was
impact.
just part of that.
I know you're a big part of it.
Yeah.
And
With Marguerite, you just kind of follow.
yeah,
She's really the driving force.
our scholarship program has been what Barb has overseen since its inception, probably 20 years ago now, and has been the connection with the counselors at the schools to make sure that all the kids that need support have it and have access. And she's worked very hard on that, and it's been a passion of hers, and it's been a lot to our community, to our families, our community, and our department. But her impact is obviously much bigger than the work that she has done. I think her legacy is in the staff that she has fostered for the last 15, 20 years plus. I did the math. I'm not gonna do the math. I'm not gonna say the math out loud.
Yeah.
But we've joked for many years, for a long time, about Barb being sort of the mother of the department. And the reality is she is
The most immature person.
she's actually the I am the next closest in age to Barb within our department.
We're getting old, Mike.
Yeah, I know. And I was in school with her kids. And so she has been a motherly figure to us, imparting her wisdom, her passion, her knowledge. It's a legacy that, hopefully the staff a lot of them will be working there for decades to come, but it's a legacy that you have left. And I can't thank you enough, both personally and professionally, for what you have done for all of us. So, Barb, thank you for your 33 years and for being the person you are and for all that you've done.
There you go.
So.
You didn't have to write it?
We do, no, this is the running joke, running joke as we started talking about how we want to do this for Barb. I was like, is it inappropriate to have Barb write her own? So she's written some you wrote Denny's, you wrote Mary Ellen, they were wonderful. Dale.
Can I say, for those that don't know, these plaques are up in our office, and we have plaques back. I mean, we have probably 40 plaques up there. Well, even before John. Who was the director before John? Flickinger. Yeah, there's somebody from the third, fourth, what is it on there? And so it's pretty cool. I mean, it's cool from a staff standpoint to be able to see the history of the people that, frankly, came before us and helped build the department and get us to where we are today. And, some of them we all knew or know who we worked with, whether it's Dale or John Brennan or John Barr. And some of them I've only heard about by name, but it's pretty cool to be able to see their impact and what they've done. So we're excited that.
And if you sit on the red board, you get one too. That's on the other wall.
That's on the other one.
You're over there, wherever.
Yeah, that's right. So I only had to have Barb take this picture 4 times. We got it on 4 o'clock. We needed a good one. I'm just gonna ask you, just come stand over here. All right, so it's in recognition, Barb Brenner, 1989 to 2022. Now, this is kind of a summary of everything that Mike said. It's not quite as heartfelt as we said.
Oh, I'm sure you'll love it.
But these are a lot of Mike's words, and I think there's a few comments. In recognition of 33 years of dedication and service to the city of Bexley, as a recreation parks employee and advocate, Barb's impact on our community and on this department cannot be understood. As a program leader, Barb created and managed a range of program offerings that allowed her to connect everyone in her community. From preschool sport programs to youth art and dance, the development of Jeffrey Summer Camp, the introduction of lacrosse and field hockey programming, adult fitness programs such as yoga, boot camp, and Pilates, tennis lessons, nature adventures, lifelong learning lessons, community events such as the 4th of July 5-day run and Harvest Festival, and much more. Barb has brought so much opportunity for joy, common experience, togetherness, fun, and excitement to our community. During the course of her career, Barb's passion for providing opportunity for all was evident through her work with local nonprofit organization DAR. Through the years, DAR has organized clothing drives, parades, and distributed funds to help families in need stay in their homes, pay utility bills, put food on their table, connected students with educational support services, advocated for affordable housing support, provided hundreds of bikes for kids and families, and much more. Barb also managed the oversight of the department's Mariana Holbrook Youth Scholarship Fund and created our current senior discount program. She worked hard to ensure that everyone had access to recreation programming no matter their age or ability. Barb not only brought passion and commitment to this department and the community, but she also brought personality to the office. Yes, she did. She was a great coworker, friend, and mentor that always knew what to say to provide the best support in tough situations. Her positive impact on the recreation department will be evident for years to come. You got a spot in your house for this?
Oh, that's
Right on.
sure.
Right next to your high school diploma, your Bexley High School diploma.
So, that was nice. So, yeah, so, actually, I'm not joking. You just answer the phone and you listen to somebody's idea, and as long as it's moral, and you could probably go with, that's how lacrosse started. A kid from Hartley came in and said, hey, my sister loves lacrosse, I'll coach. Like, will you guys do a girls team? And so I went into John and I said, we need a girls sport. So, you know, we struggled a little until we got Jillian. I had Kara Hardesty do it for 2 years, the field hockey coach. I said, you can just do it. It's just like field hockey. Didn't know anything about it, but we started, you know, we got through it.
Just like field hockey.
Yeah, it's just like, but yeah, and nothing can happen without a good director. You know, I had John Barr, I had Mike, I wasn't there when John Brennan was there, but you know, nothing happens unless they say yes. And so I've always had, you know, very supportive directors that pretty much let me do it over. Obviously, Synchronized Swimming, come on, like that was kind of weird, you know. But you know, so you know, it's just not one person. You know, it has to take the whole group. It's so supportive, and you know, I mean, I'm very touched by all the nice things, but in my mind, in my heart, I know it wasn't me. It was answering the phone and saying yes and going to the director and then having everybody help. And so it's totally a department thing. And you know, when I was in city council, I probably wasn't the most heartfelt night, but it gets down to the fact that we have the park, and you know, we're a mile from downtown, and we have this acreage, and it's up to you guys. You're the front line, not council. You guys are the front line, and you have got to protect it. And you know, we have a lot of good ideas, and we have to, you know, with everything else, with progress, you have to take the old and the new, and you have to blend it. But you know, we really do have to be very conscious of the park, because if we're not, we won't have it. And I always tell John or Mike, it's our global warming. It's like our global warming. We have to start caring about it. We do need a shelter house, and that really is a need, because we're going to hope to do a lot of nature programming out of it. So I think that'll be great. And you know, other than the schools, in my opinion, nobody or nothing touches families like the rec department. So again, Mike is very frugal, so he is not going to ask you for money unless it's right with his intent. So just, I would just ask you to trust his asks, and they're never going to be out of line or over the top. Whatever he asks for, it has been well researched and it's the cheapest. So, so I mean, it's
Most
like,
economical.
yeah, it all, I mean, as a comment, you know, it's like you can trust what we ask for as far as money. And like I said, you know, what we do, you don't see. You just see some of the families that live here and what, you know, I know all of you make a really good salary and you're comfortable, but to live here, it takes a lot. And if we don't nurture everyone, we're just going to be this upper class white community, and there will be no diversity, and there will be no single parents, and there will be no people of color. And so when we say like, oh, the camp is really a good deal. Well, you know, when you make $50,000 and you have 2 kids and your husband doesn't pay you anything, sending 2 kids to camp, do you know how much money that is a week? And we're very fortunate to have this now endowment, which is terrific. But, you know, just be aware that not everybody makes $400,000 that lives here, and that, you know, doesn't have to worry about money, because we want to be a community that opens our arms and embraces everybody. And, you know, we can take care of them. That's who we are. You know, I sound like Joe Biden. That's who we are. You know, we are that, and we can do that, and we can care for people. But, you know, just try to do the best. You know, we always have to try to offer the best program at the least cost. And Anne's husband came up through this, and it's called public recreation, and it's giving the best we can for the cheapest. And God love Mike and allowing me with this 10% discount for seniors, because you know, that was like my biggest passion, is making sure that we could give something to seniors too, and at a lower cost. But just know that it's our mission to include everybody, and just make sure we always take care of everyone, and even those kids that don't have a lot. And I'm speaking from this because I see the emails and I see the requests, and I see that, hey, we owe $500 on our water. We don't know, you know, we were behind. You know, the city is very helpful with water bills and stuff, but just, you know, just not everybody lives in a really comfortable house and everything, all their bills are paid on time. And we want to make sure that we are an inclusive community and that we welcome everybody, and we give those kids an opportunity to go to a good school. Like, you want your kid to go to a good school. I mean, that's why they move here. But we have to take care of it. So that's it. Take care of the park. Give us our money. That's my plea. And it has never been a job for me. I loved what I did. I loved the people I worked with, especially this last crew. But if I could stay there forever, I would. But when we took the staff picture, and I think you all remember this on Sesame, there's one thing that doesn't belong. So it was the lady with the gray hair. So I didn't want to move on, but you have that moment and you know it's time. So it's been my pleasure. Thank you for everything. Just remember who we are.
Yeah.
Well, Barb, we're not quite done yet.
Oh, God.
As a board, we wanted to also thank you officially. And, you know, we echo the words of Mike and Natalie, and, you know, appreciate your service to the city and the community and to the rec department. So I'm proposing a resolution for the board to approve, and I think you guys all have a copy, where it says, whereas Barb Greiner was hired by the Bexley Recreation and Parks Department on March 14th, 1991, and my understanding is that was when you were full-time hired. Whereas Barb's impact on our community is vast, as evident by the wide array of programs she provided, from youth sports to dance classes to yoga to camp to nature activities to special events and more. And whereas Barb has always been an advocate for serving the underserved and providing opportunity to all, and has done so through her efforts and with Darn and oversight of the Mariana Holbrook Scholarship Fund. And whereas Barb's creativity and drive helped bring new programs to the community, such as the Jeffrey Summer Camp, Youth Lacrosse, Nature Walks, and more. And whereas Barb has been the heartbeat of the Recreation and Parks Department, providing passion for our work, imparting wisdom on her fellow employees, and giving direction for how to best serve our community. And whereas Barb's marks has forever been left on this community and those she serviced and the friends that she worked with. Now therefore be it resolved by the Recreation Board that this Recreation Board thanks Barb Greiner for her 33 years of service and for her indelible mark she has left on our community. Bexley is a more special place because of Barb Greiner. So I would move that the board, if there's a second, to approve this resolution in honor of all the hard work and dedication Barb's given this community. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much, Barb. Sure.
Well, it's gonna be hard for me not to cry. I know. Well, I've known Barb, gosh, well, it seems like my whole life, but she was, I first met you when you first good friends with my brother Jen. And we became good friends, and then our daughter babysat for my kids for many years, so I've known Barb forever. And Mike has said in recent weeks a few times that you are the heart of the Recreation Department. And you are. Particularly, I think we're all indebted to you for the work you've done in not only the community at large, but really intentionally identifying the needs of children and families that have unmet needs, and working with others and collaborating to ensure that their needs are met. And that's not something everybody would do as compassionately and as consistently and as persistently as you have done over the years. So we are all indebted to you for that, and for all the other wonderful things that Mike and Natalie have mentioned. So I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm happy to still be working in the senior center. I'm a perfect fit. And I know I'll see you around. And I'm very happy for you. And congratulations on what your next adventure is going to be. You're going to have a little bit more time to do some fun stuff, and that's a good thing. So thank you for your service and for your friendship.
And you can stay and take notes.
Yeah.
Natalie's like, I was like, what are we doing next few months?
Because Natalie's going to whine about it. It's going to be rough in the
I'm
office.
gonna call you like, hey, what's your strategy on this?
What's your strategy? Make it up. Okay, well, thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Roger, I'm going to take my, we'll see, when you're retired, then it's like, Mom, can you take me to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning? So that's what I'm doing tomorrow. So I'm gonna go home and hopefully
Go to bed.
Actually, we did a group photo.
Oh, sure. So Barb, where
Yes.
was synchronized swimming?
Pardon me?
Where was synchronized swimming?
At the pool.
So it was in the summer?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
It's
gosh,
only in the-
is there
I was
pictures?
going to Synchronized Swimming.
Are there pictures?
We take it in front.
I don't know. I looked at the shawl, but they competed. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's another thing. I said.
You're trying to solve that.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Come on, Mike.
See you around.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I know.
Is it on there?
Resolution signatures. Yes, it's popular, right? I'm like,
Yes, yes.
Oh, I'm into it. I do it all the time. Do you play pickleball today? Yes, that's your tennis. Did you play tennis stuff or you just picked up pickleball?
Pickleball, they have like a learn session to learn about it. And then you just get on the courts on Wednesday or Friday. It's kind of like,
Oh, and then everybody's out there.
yeah, and everybody like teaches you.
Yeah.
Have you been playing in the winter indoors or are you? just
No,
been-
we still started, the only time we don't play outside is when it's not icy or like rainy. So we would bundle up and play.
Wow,
Yeah, get out there and do it. So.
you play too?
I play tennis.
Okay, you
But
don't
I'm-
play pickleball?
I play just for fun.
Yeah.
I have pickleball racket when but like 4 years ago, at all the places I played tennis.
Yeah.
When we would leave like on Friday, all of a sudden, it was
Yeah.
so it really started taking off like 4 years ago. And now, like, yeah, after the courts are done with, racket.
It's still going. Well, this is-
Scarborough or wherever they reel it, it's just taking off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pickleball courts are used more than the tennis
You
courts.
can't get a court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird. It's mornings are really busy, but afternoons tend not to be as busy. At least they
Yeah.
used to be for some reason, which I'm not quite sure why, but
Yeah, it's
Oh.
fun. A lot of what your needs are.
Yeah.
I don't think I did the minutes. So did I skip over that? Did I skip over doing the approved minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 2nd, 2022? Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Okay. That was really nice and touching for everybody. I mean, Barb is really just, it's hard to put in words what she's contributed to the community. And so appreciate everyone's remarks about that. So something more.
And to echo
Sort
that,
of
thank
mine.
you to the board for the resolution. That was very, very nice. Thank you. And I want to be clear, like Barb and I didn't work out this speech because I'm about to ask for money. Seasonal staffing update. Obviously we went into this year sort of expecting that staffing would be a little more difficult with the impact of COVID, the impact on, working in that environment, the somewhat expected impact on costs for staffing moving forward. We did build in, I don't know if everyone remembers, we went through the budget process, we built in some additional funds, recognizing that we expected our staffing costs to go up in order to staff. But what we have seen is that it's much higher than even we had anticipated in terms of being able to get seasonal staff in. So, and we've had some of those conversations at council, but I want to bring the rec board sort of up to date. We're in the what is usually the back end of our main summer seasonal staffing period. It really starts at the beginning of the year and we try to wrap that up by basically March, early April. It's been really difficult to get staff, frankly, to even get applications. We've gone, with camp, we were sort of looking at sort of $10 an hour as starting, going into this year. And it hasn't been sufficient. We have sort of three sort of metrics that we've used to determine it's not working. Some of them are more anecdotal and some of them are more specific with numbers. But, first of all, we got a lot of direct feedback from potential returning staff that, what we were intending to pay was not going to work for them. And we saw a much lower retention rate on staff than maybe we would have seen in years past. Some of that is also, look, it's been a hard couple of years to work in the daycare environment with COVID. And I'm sure that also had some sort of wear and stress on people. That's been difficult. But we had much lower applicants. By the end of March, we only had 13 new applications for our summer camp program, in which we usually will get 30 to 40 applicants. And after going through the interviews with those 13, we dropped down to 9 because at the time, the rate that we were going to provide was just insufficient for 4 of them to even consider it. We also had, we reached out to individuals that we knew in the community that we thought might have an interest in, anecdotal conversations. I'm making, much more at Chipotle, and it wouldn't make sense. Those sort of conversations have occurred with numerous people. So taking all that sort of into consideration and understanding that we don't have the number of staff needed to meet the demand we have for our camp program. We did some analysis and looked at, Katie Sarvis reached out to different camps to see what they are sort of paying, what their sort of going rates are. And we're seeing this sort of across the board. They're all dealing with that. And we sort of settled on $12 an hour being our floor for our pay for our seasonal camp staff. And had the conversations with council. We think the budget can accommodate that, although it'll be really tight, and it depends on what happens with our numbers. But we've sort of let council know that it's entirely possible. We're coming back to them at the end of the summer saying, look, we're paying $12 an hour. We're hoping we could get through on what was passed with the budget, but we might have to ask for additional funds in order to do that. We had conversations with council. They had some very good questions, which I think we were prepared for because we'd already sort of evaluated, which is, what are our ratios? Are there ways to think differently about, our ratio normally is sort of, we try to be at 8-to-1. Can we maximize that ratio and therefore, help reduce the number of staff maybe that we would need, even though we're paying more? And we have and will do that and are taking that into consideration in terms of how we operate the camp. Some of the ratio requirements are dictated by licensing with ODJFS. I think it's, don't quote me on that, I think it's 6-to-1 with the youngest age group, 8-to-1 and 10-to-1, or it might be 8, 10, 12. I can't remember off the top of my head. 8, 10, 12 for the 3 different camps. So we're gonna make some adjustments there. And I think we can still offer a very good program with a slightly increased ratio. Obviously, some of the relaxing on some of the COVID measures will also help with the number of staff we need, where we don't have to pod them in separate groups. And when the numbers get low enough, we can combine them and therefore have, instead of having 2 staff, we can have 1 staff. So those are all things that we are going to be doing. But the reality is when you increase essentially 20% in, some cases a little more than that, your salary and wages, it's going to have an impact on a budget that is $260,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, I think, if I remember correctly. So you're talking about $50,000 plus of additional costs that, maybe it was not intended. The other thing that, is a real impact of increasing the floor, if you will, is, if historically we have camp staff working at $9 to $10 an hour, and we have then the leadership positions being at, $12 an hour, and then the directors being at $14 an hour, and then their boss being at $17 an hour, and so on. There's a trickle up effect of that. There really isn't a big difference between these levels where it's like, okay, well, if we add $2 to this person, we're still gonna have some sort of distinction between those levels. And, there's some trickle up, if you will, in this case, impact to that we'll have to continue to keep an eye on. Another example of that is we hired 2 new full-time rec coordinator positions, Marshall Drury and the gentleman by the name of Reese. I won't, for public record's sake, no reason to put out his name, but he was supposed to start on Monday and got another job and a better opportunity, right? So those are all sort of the impacts of this. And he's, in his position as a rec coordinator, it would be of our full-time position, sort of the lowest paid of our full-time positions, right? Which is this, again, a step above, leadership positions in our seasonal stuff. So a step above, for example, a camp director. And so again, that sort of are some of the things that we're seeing and aware of. So all that to say, council was supportive, I think, of us going to $12. So we've gone to $12 for our camp. This is also, we're seeing the same issue with our preschool program. I will say, as we move to $12 within the first week, we got, I think Katie said, like 13 new applicants. It has been effective. We continue to get more applicants in. We continue to have more interest. So it is, it is obviously, the feedback has made it really clear that it was a good decision. It wasn't like, hey, we're just paying this for the sake of paying it. It actually, impacted decisions for employees. Preschool's in the same boat. Kate Swindle did a analysis with JCC, I think Christ Lutheran, and maybe one other. And they're starting pay now for their lead teachers around $20 an hour. Where we're currently at about 17. The difficulty, obviously the board passed an increase in our rates for those two programs. And it was a little higher than maybe we would normally do, recognizing that our costs had gone up, but I don't think it's not going to cover a 20% increase that we're seeing from a salary wages standpoint. And so the board's aware the vast majority of our expenses on those types of programs is in salary wages. It's not like we're like, well, equipment is staying the same price, and it's now 85% of our expenses are our salary wages are higher. So we're gonna have, I've met with Katie Sarvis and Kate Swindle, who run those two programs, and we're evaluating sort of everything that we can do to keep costs down, to maximize our staff numbers. But some of the stuff is set, right? We've already have a full preschool based on a certain pay rate, or based on a certain cost for the program. So we can't exactly change that, nor do I think we'd want to at this point. Same with camp. There is still money, and we'll have these discussions with the administration about federal funds to help offset sort of hazard pay, if you will. There's the opportunity to offset some of that, at least for this year. I bring this up, to keep the board informed, but I don't think this is, I'm more concerned about sort of the 5-year sort of impact of this, because right now there may be federal funds to help with some of this from a city's budget standpoint, but next year there may not be, in the year after. And it's not like we're gonna take a step backwards. We're not gonna go from paying $12 an hour to paying, 10. Whether or not we'll see sort of a slow and, it slows down on how quickly that goes up, and maybe we make it up over time, because that number stays the same for a couple of years, and we increase the camp program by 3 or 4%, and all of a sudden we're sort of back into the right sort of cost to revenue ratios. But these are our big drivers on our budget, and when you have this sort of an impact on that, then it impacts it on a sort of a rec fund transfer sort of a level, right? Which we've had some conversations about. Up before COVID, we went from what was $400,000 subsidy from the city's general fund to the rec fund to being in the black and adding 100,000 through the rec department, and essentially not necessarily needing any transfer from the city, although there was still, we had some debates with the mayor, and some of you may remember, about philosophically whether there should still be a rec fund transfer, because that's sort of the city's tax investment in what we do as a department. And I think at the time I think I may have said something along the lines of, things are really good now, but who knows where things, who knows what could happen, not obviously expecting to have a pandemic, but
therein lies the issue. You don't always know what to expect, and that money was a safety net, and should be a safety net. So I think at the time we kind of wanted to keep the whole thing, right?
As much as possible. I mean, I think that was some of the debate, and the mayor.
That's what because that's the precedent, and Robert just talked about all the good reasons why we need it.
So it's something that we're gonna have to continue to look at. It's something that we all need to be aware of. It's something that council will need to continue to be aware of. And there'll have to be some sort of more global philosophic discussions about what the impact of that is down the line, and how the city decides to deal with that. I need to continue to crunch numbers and sort of look at, really what are we talking about in terms of impact. But, a very simplistic view would be take our salary and wages for our camp and add 20% and be like, well, that's what it's going to do. It's not quite that. It's a little more in depth than that. And we'll try to kind of break it down a little more closer than just sort of a general 20% add-on. But the other thing is, and council's aware of those two issues with pool and with camp and preschool. The preschool one is gonna be really tricky. Preschool has a lot less flexibility than camp because we have a building with walls that only allow so many kids. And one of the issues we have with the space at Jeffrey, which is amazing, but we have rooms that hold like 13 or hold 9 or hold whatever. And at 13, you need 2 staff members. Well, if we wanted to do a 12-to-1 ratio and maximize sort of, we could increase kids without increasing expenses, but we can't do that in certain rooms. So it doesn't lay out as simple. And, you know, one of the things we'll frankly look at, because we want, for some of you that may have been around, I'm not sure if any of the board was around, maybe back in 2009, right? When we had a lot of 8, 9, when obviously the economy wasn't very good and we had layoffs and everything else. One of the things that was looked at really closely was eliminating the preschool program at the time because it wasn't covering its costs. And so back then we sort of, you know, I will say from a rec department administrative level, you know, I think it has since then been very important to us that we're never in a position where the conversation of eliminating those sort of things could happen because it wasn't covering costs, and we did a lot of things to improve on those. But you know, it's a concern that I have moving forward. And so one of the things we could look at is to maximizing the preschool. And again, this wouldn't affect this year because we're already set for this year. But you know, we take these classrooms that hold 13 or 14 and say, you know what, we're only going to hold 12 kids, and we're only going to have 1 teacher, because then we can make it pencil out. But then that becomes a discussion of less kids being served, right? Less people in our community receiving the support that they might need. So those will all be things that we'll continue to talk about and think about. Since we had the since we had city council meeting, I think the next 2 days later, Natalie had a meeting with SwimSafe, which is the pool management company. And as you know, I don't, Natalie, please jump in at any point, but they conveyed basically the same issues that we're seeing, which is that they're not paying their staff enough to get people to be lifeguards.
They started in with what we asked them to pay them
Yeah.
last year, right? So we said, well, this is what we were paying, because I think they would want to pay more, because they do that in other pools. We were like, we at least want to start where the kids know that they had last year before, and want to keep that pretty consistent with the business.
Yeah, well, and the big thing for us when we went through the RFP process was to make sure that our staff was not going to get paid less than what they were getting paid with us. And so they committed to that and built a proposal based on sort of numbers that we expected them to hit from a staffing standpoint. Fast forward 2 years later, and the pricing is a lot higher now for staff than what they had anticipated. So they have told us, and they did an analysis, and it's broken down, which and looking at it seemed reasonable, right, in terms of the amount of hours they think they have in the staff and what those costs are. What would equate to about a $34,000 increase in the contract, for $33,000 increase for salary and wages, and the other area that they've been hit is a $4,000 increase on chemical costs.
Okay, so 32 and then 4.
33 and 4. It's roughly, it's just under 37,000
Yeah.
total.
Chemical, yeah.
Now we haven't, and I haven't, Carl reached out to me via text this afternoon about trying to talk tomorrow. So, you know, one could make the argument on the chemical side that, you know, look, if the chemical prices had gone down, you wouldn't have adjusted our contract. Chemical prices have gone up. Should we be adjusting the contract? You know, that's something I'll probably reach out to Mark Fishel to see whether it makes any sense. Me personally, I don't think that holds water when it comes to the salary and wages, in which we indicated very specifically what we wanted them to pay, and that has changed, and they can't staff it. So the other thing I would also say is, you know, this needs to, in order for this to work, in order to have a management company, it has to work for them. If all of a sudden we hold their feet to fire on things and they're like, look, this doesn't work anymore, then all of a sudden we don't have a management company. And these are real, you know, it's not like they're bringing up things that we're not seeing in our own sort of operation. So that is money that we frankly probably cannot cover within our existing budget. I think what I told the mayor is I think we have in contracts, we have $210,000, and the contract as it was for SwimSafe is about $188,000. There's some additional built in there because there's things that they could bill us for that are above and beyond the contract. If we have an after hours event and they staff it, then we have to pay for the additional staff, those sort of things. So we always built a little bit in there, understanding there could be additional costs. So you add $37,000 to that, and we're already above that 210. So that's something I haven't talked with council about, and I will at the next meeting. And frankly, we'll probably have an ordinance to increase it because we know we're not going to be able to get through it no matter what.
Right, and that's annual, right?
It's annual.
And then remind me when we signed with them last year, I keep forgetting how this worked. We signed with them, but wasn't it for it wasn't just 1 year?
They gave us an RFP for 3 years,
RFP
and
was
they get
3
pricing
years.
for 3 years, but it's each year we both have to agree to move forward with the next year's contract.
That's what it
Right.
was, okay.
So, and they had just sort of reasonable, it was
With each year
183, I
review.
think was last year. Yeah, and I think it became 183, 188, and like 192 or something like that for the 3 years. So very reasonable sort of cost of doing business increases.
Right,
But it's not, at this point, it's not gonna work probably is what, ultimately we're gonna hear unless we're willing to
right.
make some adjustments. And I get that. I mean, it's not an unforeseen, I don't think anyone can see that we're gonna see this sort of increase.
Do they expect that increase? Do they believe they'll be able to staff it with that increase?
I think so. I mean, they done a research and they had a whole bunch of extra businesses that were $11 or $12 or more. And then they were just on the item store here. So I mean, I think if we can get it to, they want to get it up to, I think it's $11.50
Okay,
to start as like a first time lifeguard.
Yep.
I think the returning would be $12.50.
returning
That's what they're looking
12.
at, yeah.
Okay,
And then they get like if they have like more years of experience as a return, let's say like 2 years, they'll get like a little tournament or something like that.
what were we at?
We were at $9.50. So basically, the starting rate is $2 increase.
The other bit of that is we also got word that Poolside Grill, this was last week, our vendor for concessions, who we just signed a 2-year contract with.
For
21, sorry, is not going to come back because they can't staff. So, they have, some of you may be aware, they obviously have their investment with, I'm gonna butcher their name.
Bexley Butcher?
No,
Bexley
yeah, thank you.
Butcher, just
I'm
say
gonna
Bexley Butcher.
Pun intended. So that's a focal point, and they just, so we have also reached out to, Natalie's been working, and I appreciate all that, it's one of the cool stuff, she takes all the lead on this. So all the information I'm giving you is thanks to Natalie, by the way. She's reached out to local municipalities. I am reaching out to Capital's food vendor, not that they would have any interest in it. And she's also reached out to SwimSafe, and SwimSafe has provided us an estimate on running our concession stand. And it was $35,000 plus the cost of food. So the way that they would structure it is they would just provide the staff, they'd buy the food, they'd send the bill for the food on to us, and we would get all revenue. What we know historically about about the concession stand is, obviously we know what different vendors have done in there from revenue side, just they pay us a percentage. And as few as 7 years ago, their receipts were around 47,000, and last year it was 120,000.
That's what we made.
In receipts.
Receipts.
That's gross.
We got
Yeah, what we made on that was not to exceed, not 9 or 10. But it was, that was by far the most that we've ever seen. I mean, I think the year before, which Poolside Girl did it the year before, I think they were in the 70s. Yeah, around 70,000, and they had a pretty big jump last year, which was interesting given that we had a reduction in hours.
Well, they really upgraded their venue, didn't they, in terms of made it a lot
Yeah,
better?
and they did a great job with food. Oddly enough, I think too, I mean, they had done a pretty good job even the year before. I think the reality is last year when we reduced the hours, so the general public wasn't there from 2 to 4 because of our camp program. Well, that meant the general public was there at lunch, they were at dinner. And it probably had some positive impact on the concession because when you're there is when you're eating normally. And so now instead of going, which is a pretty high use time from 1 to 4 or whatever, and you do lunch before and get dinner afterwards, you're there sort of with if you want to enjoy the pool. I don't have any evidence specific to that, but it's sort of is a theory that makes some sense at least. Anyway, you know, my Swim Safe is willing to do it, assuming they get the staff. We're going to continue to look at all of our options. If I'm being honest, I don't love the idea of having a third party run it without any, it's going to sound bad, without any skin in the game in that setting. We're just like, we're going to get whatever we're going to get, regardless of whether we do a good job or not, whether the employees do a good job of making sure they get paid for their fries when they give out fries and get paid for, you know, I've been around the pool for a long time, and I remember very clearly as a kid, knowing people that work at the pool having maybe, you know, access to some free food from time to time. I think, you know, when you're running a business office, you have a lot more oversight on that, and you're less, you know, you're really, and so if we're only receiving the revenue that comes in, and they have no sort of, you know, there's no impact on them if the revenue is lower. That does concern me a little bit, but also then what are our options?
So it's even no impact on even waste, forgetting about giving away food. But
Waste,
just the
right.
waste, I mean,
Yep. So, you know, some of Natalie, feel free to jump in. Some of the, I think, initial information Natalie's gotten is some of these, you know, municipal pools, a lot of them are doing it in-house themselves. We don't have a lot of experience doing that, so that's a little bit sort of, you know, disconcerting.
Yeah, there's a couple that use a company, it's pretty good, they use a company and we're on the company, which I'm gonna get verification. But like, you know, let's say Westville, or like I said, has like an indoor pool and outdoor pool, they might have some better opportunity for our staff to work that and do it in those.
They could have year-round staff, you know, you have a full-time employee managing that.
So I can see why that probably works in some locations.
When is when would that concession open, when it would end, and what are the hours that we run concession?
Basically the hours that the pool are open. Now it's obviously up to the operator if they want to not open at a certain time or close early because there's, you know, less people there. They want to close an hour early. But we typically say, hey, these hours are open.
Which is generally 11:30 to 8:30.
Yeah, in my house.
But I will also say, Swim Safe in their proposal did have some reduced hours.
Especially when the school was back, it was only open on weekends.
Yeah, they had some built-in reduced hours based on sort of where they saw demand. And when they can get staff, right? When school's
Swim
still in,
Safe had
yeah.
built-in hours, okay,
They had some reduction from what would be our normal
right.
operating
The
hours.
pool center was probably open, assuming we're open all of the school days that we were open, but they're only 3 days a week. I'm sure they were still open. But they were just stick to weekends.
I mean, it just makes me a little nervous that we'd have, I mean, it depends on what we get in for proposals, but having the pool company also do the concession stand is a lot of responsibility for one company. And let's be honest, like, things come up for kids and so I have a fear they're gonna be shuffling staff around and it's gonna get confusing real fast. And if they're not, this is just me being crazy about this, but like, food safety is a thing. So having a company understands the importance of food safety and that kind of thing is important too. So maybe if we get a great proposal from another vendor, and I was just thinking, like, company makes $100,000, you send them gross receipts for, I mean, maybe we just up the take a little bit more than $10,000. I don't know what the going rate is. We take 5% or 10. I mean, we can maybe figure that out a little bit to make up costs, but it just makes me nervous making an entity that is not in the food service business in charge of the poolside grill.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. They do, so it's not their main focus. They do manage some other pools, essentially. They have some experience with it, I will
Okay.
say that. It's not like it's like, this is an idea, what do you think? Can you guys do it?
Hey, kid, do you know how to make fries?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even when we went through,
Right.
even when we went through the RFP, they made it clear that that's a service that they can provide.
Okay.
So they have some, but I hear your point, and, you know, obviously there are certifications to be a lifeguard, so it's not like they can be like, hey, we're gonna take people out of the concession stand and go be a lifeguard, and now they could go the other direction. I think that would be
Yeah.
important that they have some sort of clear sort of lines that guards are not intended, they're not working there to be concession stand workers. But your point is valid, which is when you're sort of up against it, what are you gonna do to try to make things work? And, you know, I think we agree that if we can find a third party vendor that we feel comfortable with, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
The good news is, at the very least, we have a backup to the backup. Maybe worst case scenario, the question we gotta figure out is what's the timing on this? You know, like what point do we have to pull a trigger so that they can get staff and be comfortable that they're gonna be able to do what they are promising us they're gonna do?
And they're not flexible at all, trying to negotiate something that gives them some skin in the game, so make it a little more reassuring to you guys.
They have talked about another,
Well, the other option is Grove City does this.
With
them-
Swim Safe.
With Swim Safe. They want nothing to do with the concessions. They said you run it, you take the money, you get the product, you get the revenue, you get everything. And you have the expenses. Basically, it's just, we're not taking a percent of it. Would be the other option. we could set.
which reduces our liability, but, you know,
Right.
means that, and I don't mean, although I guess maybe that as well, I don't mean like safety liability, but in terms of a loss, you know.
Right.
It's only good, we're not gonna lose anything on it.
Yeah.
Do you get to help like decide menus or anything like that, or you're just completely?
At that point, I think.
No skin in the
it would be, here you go. I think that they're typical, from what I've understood, their typical concessions are very basic, you know, your simple, just concession food, hamburgers, hot dogs, nothing like outrageous.
Corn dogs.
Corn dogs. Not every kid likes them, apparently.
Better be mozzarella stick in there.
Sandwiches and more.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, it would be a big change, and it's going to, with whatever we go with, it's going to be a big change from what we.
I mean, it seems to be that option, if you came down to it, it's sort of better in a way than the one where you guys are paying everything and then just get the revenue. Would they, you know, obviously they have an incentive to run it right if it's their risk and everything else in terms of what they buy and everything, you know, as opposed to just, I don't know if the way the first option is they just buy their food and then just send you the bill, and that becomes kind of problematic potentially. Not to say they're cheating you or anything, it's just that there's no incentive for them to be more cautious or more frugal in terms of what they're buying and what they throw out and all that kind of stuff.
And again, there's, and to that point, the loss to us in that situation is a maximum of basically $9,000.
Right.
Right, because that's what we would have made off of poolside grill if they were operating. So,
And it's unlikely you're going to duplicate what they made last year.
yeah,
I mean, under any circumstances, so it's probably going to be much less than that.
probably. Although, you know, not to get too nitty gritty, the contract with poolside grill was 12% with a cap of 9.
Okay.
So even if they had done 80,000 or whatever, we would have still been in that same ballpark. But so it's 14%.
Yeah.
So there's, yeah, but yes, to your point, it's, you know, there's no guarantee we'd even gotten 9,000 or 10,000.
So we're looking at now 50,000 increase for seasonal staff, which is already approved. Then maybe another
30 for pool, 33,000 for staff and 4,000 for chemicals, 37,000.
and then, but then in general, just and then another 50 for like the camp staff. The
Oh.
10, go from 10 to the step up.
You know what? Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
I'm trying to give a general idea of
Sure.
a 20% increase to what our salary wages is
Got it.
roughly. At this point, we are not going to we're not going to bring an ordinance to council asking for more money for camp at this point in time.
Okay.
We think we can do it within the budget, but as the payroll goes along in the summer, we may have something in front of them that may need emergency passing in
Okay.
August in order to pay bills for the last, you know, part of the year.
How many people do you have to hire for the summer camp on a seasonal basis?
It's in the neighborhood of 50
50.
to 60.
How many do we have right now?
probably in the mid-20s.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, again, the last week, they have felt much better about it. The leadership of the campus felt much better about where it's at.
Yeah.
But I think they needed to hire somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 minimum
Right.
of new staff. And at one point, we only had 9 applicants. So, and I think in the last week, since we increased it, basically they said we're at 13 or 14 new applicants. So obviously, the more applications we can get, the more choosy we can be about the quality of staff. There's a lot of benefits to have a lot more applicants than we have positions needed. But at the very least, we need to make sure we're meeting our minimums. And those are based on our current registration numbers in terms of what they think the numbers they need to have. And our registration, I think we talked about this maybe last meeting, but our registration was pretty strong coming out of COVID. It's been a pretty strong registrations for all 3 camps.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
The only other staff question I have, so if we have a staff member who does like the aftercare program during the school year and then goes to we also then have to consider I don't know what the aftercare staff makes. Would they be going to a lower level when they go back to aftercare?
That's a good question. And so, no, we if we have somebody that's going over multiple programs, we ultimately end up paying them the highest of the 2. Although aftercare went through the same issue where we increased aftercare. Now, aftercare, generally speaking, is a little, before all this was going on, aftercare was a little higher because we're trying to get people at a time where it's hard to hire because they're not out of school. And we're also asking them to come in for a 2-hour, 3-hour stints as opposed to an 8-hour day. So you sort of have to pay them a little more to incentivize them to make the trip out from wherever they're coming from. So they were already getting paid a little bit more, but even that, we increased that during COVID to incentivize. I think we're closer to $13 in our aftercare program with our seasonal staff.
Yeah, I would just think it would be weird if they went back to aftercare in September. Was that
and we have the same situation with some preschool staff, some like support staff in the preschool department, preschool program that then do camp. And historically, the preschool staff gets paid more than a high school kid coming into the camp program. And we sort of just match that same rate.
Quick question, Natalie, for you. The third-party vendors for the pool, you said Hilliard uses one. Is it a local?
She gave me the, I can't remember, I just emailed it today. I'm assuming it's local.
Just like like the Clarys were local. Is it?
Well,
Who was the one we said were a couple ladies that were just like,
that's at Grandview. They had like 2 moms.
2 moms that were like, we want to run the concession stand.
Right. But
So if anyone's interested.
Right. And be hiring to hire to.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if the other ones.
And it's a little eyebrows there now.
I can't even find a website on that, so I don't know if it's very.
Got it.
Small and local. The other one seemed to be a little bit more, I don't want to say professional, but like the email was, the company name. I mean, so it just seemed a little bit, but I just emailed it today.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, like Scotty's, would they be interested? It's their catering company. They can't handle crazy numbers.
We can reach out to them. Like I said, it's not Aramark that's with Capital, because Capital just changed their food service. I've also reached out to the schools, but I think that's all in-house now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll reach out to anyone that we think might have an interest in doing it.
They seem well staffed over there.
Yeah, we've talked about like, if there's a really good like graduating senior that's an entrepreneur, it could be a really good opportunity to make a pretty good amount of money, be a lot of work and and whatever. But there could be an opportunity for a high school kid that I think about high school kids that start lawn care businesses or what's the name, we did the dog care business. But somebody came in and did that and did a really good job with that. They could make a pretty good amount of money over summer. But
well, the other thing isn't Capital have a hospitality program because they took over the Airbnb. So I mean
state does the Cameron Mitchell School of Hospitality.
Yeah, well, I think Capital does too because I think they bought the Airbnb.
They did.
They did.
And I think they're staffing it. So I mean, those may be places that you could look.
Yeah.
I mean, Columbus State's a good idea
Columbus
too.
State Hospitality.
The Cameron Mitchell School. Yeah.
That's good. And then who's heading the like trade programs? I'm drawing a blank right now for the high school.
Steve Shapiro?
Yeah. So he may be a good connection. When you said the idea of a high school senior with an entrepreneurial spirit, that maybe he's going into the food industry.
I would even wonder about like a food truck. If a food truck wanted to have shift instead of being mobile all the time, would you like to take over the poolside grill spot for an entire summer, 7 days a week,
I think it's a great idea,
11:30,
especially all these people who are ramping
Would
up
it
for
work with a
Intel
food
right
truck
now.
though
Maybe they'll
outside the
come to
pool?
us for a little bit.
No, I
Yeah.
think
I
to
don't
your
know.
point is they would just come in and
They would
operate
just
their
do it
menu.
full time.
I know, but would it work as, or would
Not
that be too
having a truck,
complicated?
but they could just.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure, you know, it would make it complicated, people coming and going in
Yeah.
and out, checking and checking out.
Or just shifting their business.
But
model
if,
from
yeah,
truck
that's
to-
That's an idea. Yes.
Yes, yes. And keep the food quality.
There it
Yes.
is, because the residents, as you guys both know, the residents, I have never heard the residents talk so much about Bexley Pool's food quality. Oh my gosh, so you're right, that's gonna be a hard shift if we're back to, not.
Frozen patties and frozen chicken.
To your GFS.
Yeah,
specialties.
to the GFS, there you go.
It's good as it can be.
Yes.
Not a disappointment there.
Yeah,
This is good, right?
Yes, yeah. All right, sorry to take a lot of time with that. Any other questions on seasonal staffing updates?
Your two directors report now.
Yeah, rec board update. Pleased to announce that city council has had a second read on appointments for boards and commissions. A number of different boards and commissions are on that. But there are two rec board members, Ali D'Angelo and Tim Vesichenko, who are in front of the council. I think the third read will be at the next meeting.
next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. It does have emergency language so that they would be able to vote on stuff at the May meeting immediately after its passage. So I fully anticipate we'll have a full board for the May, we'll have a full eligible board for the May 4th meeting, which would be nice.
Names of the rec boards on our agenda, rec board members. Since there's so
Sure.
many of us that are new.
Sure, yep.
to Each other, and then it just, especially with me, I forget everybody's
Yep.
last names, it seems all the time.
Yes.
So it would be most helpful, probably would be helpful to the younger people too, right?
Yes, I think that is very nice.
Okay,
Lisa.
great.
Will do. That's a great point. Thank you. Senior Center Advisory Committee, the members are Ann Geldes, Peggy Lazarus, Larry Madison, Andrew Pitts, Michael Spielman, Rochelle Steinberg, Jenny Walsh, and Jessica Sparks from the rec board. There's a meeting set for next, I think it's Thursday, the 14th. Is that a
I
Thursday?
think so, yeah.
So we'll have our initial kickoff meeting and start to talk about sort of roles and expectations.
How many are there now?
That's a great question. I think there's 7 plus Jessica. 7, yeah, 7 plus the liaison for the rec board. Jessica. So that's exciting. I think there's a good mix. Obviously, Kristen's been working hard on that. There's a good mix of, I'm going to say new blood in terms of the BAC and not having just a BAC board move to the advisory committee board. It's a good mix though that still has some of that history and some of that institutional knowledge with what the BAC has been, with plus some new ideas and new thoughts. So that'll be good. Full membership update. The early bird membership deadline is May 1st. We got signs in today, so thank you to yeah, that was great. Thank you to the schools. They've allowed us to put some signage up at the 3 buildings. We're also going to put employment signs up there next to them saying, hey, buy your membership or get a job.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so we'll have some yard signs just put up there.
And
So
the
that'll be good.
non-resident membership is due when again? That's after the early.
Get a membership or get a job.
Incentive.
At 8 AM for non-residents. That's our registration day for residents.
Yeah.
at noon, but because it has
Well,
an impact on non-residents, like, oh, they won't be on the list for that day, so they just get on the page, and it's the application first.
Okay.
So, but if they get one, if they secure one of those 50 spots though, without being waitlisted, they technically secure the spot, so we confirm.
So there you go.
that they have
They're the sponsor, the
they're the
member
sponsor,
sponsor.
the current member, and.
We can find something.
I'm sure we can find.
Oh, we'll find something.
Oh, it's in this
It's a letter of invitation. Yes.
I think they win your sponsorship.
Okay, no problem.
To date, we have 260 early bird memberships sold.
Which again, we won't really know how to.
Usually it's the,
450 to 500.
yeah, usually it's 450 to 500, and usually it's the last couple weeks. So We don't read a whole lot into what those numbers are, but just
And we'll do
FYI.
it better, it will make sure that people know leading into that, because it's a new deadline, it used to be April first, so we'll make sure we're on that.
Any questions on that?
Natalie, did you get all the information you needed from us on that email you sent about, we need to send you something back for our membership? Did everyone respond?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
And what happens after that?
I will put you guys in the system and you'll see that pop through as you receive membership.
Okay.
So, and there'll be that.
Cards there when you go.
Yeah, well.
In what
if you have
system?
cards from last year, it'll
Okay.
just be reactivated.
Okay.
And once it goes through, you'll get an email that has.
All right, Commonwealth Park update, as maybe some of you have seen, there's some orange fencing that's going up, some construction fencing. The project is set to officially start on April 18th. We've been told it's a 3 to 5 week project, depending on weather, will be a big sort of driving impact on that. We have communicated with letters to the neighbors so that they're just sort of in the loop. I received maybe two letters that came back to me, but generally I think we sent out 50 or so letters. We are also going to put a sign up, just a banner up, just that has some additional information. That'll be on Commonwealth. Again, we're only working at this point on Commonwealth West. We're doing East in the fall. Again, the major improvements are drainage, an irrigation system put in, and soil improvement and turf replacement. Again, when I use the term turf, I want to be clear, we're not talking about synthetic turf. We are talking about natural grass.
We're getting that question now.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the long term is turf that stands in
Yes,
lights.
turf stands and lights, yes. No. I also made it clear that we weren't taking down. Yeah,
Your baseball field.
I made it clear there weren't any really vertical additions essentially with this project, and there wouldn't be any trees that were taken out as a result of this project. There may be trees that come down for other reasons, but it has nothing to do with this project. They're also, as part of this project, we're also putting in the Follies. This is all in line with the master plan that was done in 2018, I think. We're putting Follies on the entrance at some point. We'll be putting on Follies on the entrance on Columbia heading north. So there'll be these two structures on the south side of sort of the Commonwealth South in Columbia. And in those they will ultimately house some equipment for like the irrigation system, but also there'll be a permanent restroom in one of those as well. Some storage stuff. We have an architectural firm working on that. And I don't think we're too far behind doing some of the Columbia street improvements that is a part of that master plan, which is designed to make the two parks sort of stitched together a little more, allow for more pedestrian sort of passage along Columbia. Just to give, again, this isn't going to happen in the next, I don't think it'll happen next year, but in the next couple of years, we'll probably be looking at, it calls for an island, it calls for widening the streets and get around the island, but narrowing at the ends, so, really slow down traffic going through there. It's a really cool, Roger was the contact or the rec board representative on that master plan. It's a really nice plan. So we're starting to do some of that. There are plans in the work, which I think we've had some conversation about the pond potentially being added at the west side of Commonwealth West, Parkview Edge. And there's some design process going on there as well, but we'll see. I think that'll be more of a fund that is more likely to be funded through private, fundraising efforts, where this side is more done with city dollars. And then this will hopefully be usable by the fall, at which point we'll eliminate the east, well, not eliminate, we'll redo the east field. So you're aware from a school's perspective, I did reach out to Eli just to give him a heads up that the east field will not be usable for field hockey. Middle school field hockey uses that. And so I told him that we can have discussions about Schneider Park as a potential location.
Okay.
I haven't heard back, but just so that, they can plan accordingly.
Schneider Park's grass looking good for
Yeah.
the spring.
Yeah,
It is.
that looks really good.
It is.
we play, like I said the other night, there were 3 different teams, 2 different teams playing, circling out every hour on the hour. And I think it's a really great addition.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's held up pretty well. I mean, we're being very intentional about aeration and overseeding and chemical applications and, you know, what we need to do to maintain it at a pretty good level. It's, you know, it's a natural grass surface, so it's going to get its wear and tear. And we gotta, you know, we are checking it fairly regularly on rainy days and even closing it if we need to close it to try to prevent, you know, extended damage to it. Normal damage, but extended damage to it. But yeah, it's and we're excited about some more programming opportunities and events that are going to happen down there with the Jazz in the Park. There's going to have an event down there with a barbecue fest, and so there's some fun stuff going on.
Have you had any discussions or thought about, you know, we talked about a long time ago about trees around at least the playground down there, which is kind of sort of barren where the kids' equipment is, and whether
Yeah.
there's a possibility of planting trees or some type of shade around there.
More shade, that's
Yes.
a great idea.
Susan, Tree Commission has reached out about planting 2 trees over there, so we're going to look at doing that.
Good.
There's also been early conversations about adding a splash pad there, just to the south of the shelter. And it would be, when I want to be really clear, when we talk about the city, the mayor has a lot of interest in adding a handful of just sort of water splash pad features. The entrance to the trail at Main and Parkview is potentially another site that might have one. We're talking, you know, about a concrete pad with just some spray features that shoot up.
We used to go to Capitol.
Yeah, something similar, that very basic, but something that kids can go enjoy and cool off. And it would be a non-recycled water, so it wouldn't be something that has to have a system that has chemicals that we have to maintain and that sort of thing. Yes, it's good from a maintenance perspective. So there's some discussion on that too, which would also at least help with cooling people off, some kids off.
Isn't that where the dog park's going to be too out there?
The dog park will be a part of Schneider. It'll be at Astor, just north of where the Astor dead ends to the linear section of the park and the creek. And they've started construction on that as well. I think they're a fencing company that they're working on getting in there to do that. So yeah, it is really exciting. There's a lot of great things, but you're right. It's hard. You know, it's interesting you bring that up because one of the big discussions we had today at the main event meeting, which does the Jazz in the Park, which we're going to do over there, is how we're going to deal with shade for the musicians and for the people watching it. And on a big open field that is there for athletic use, there's only so much you can do, but on the edges, we'll continue to look at ways of improvement. But yeah, there are things that it works really well there. There are things that maybe doesn't, but we'll continue to look at improvements. Jeffrey Mansion cooling tower is, you know, we're in contract to have that replaced and the location moved. The new cooling tower has been ordered. An invoice has been sent to, and again, thank you to the Gina and Chris Olson Foundation, which is donating $100,000 to the project. So an invoice has been sent to them because we're now in contract and that's moving forward. It looks like realistically, it's not going to get moved until the August-ish because of just how long the lead time on getting the actual equipment in. But that's moving forward.
What will be the total cost? Is it more than 100?
Oh yeah. Which we knew it was going to be. It was. It's around Once around 220. I can't remember the contract amount exactly. It might have been a little more than that. But yeah, we knew that it was going to be leveraged against city dollars in order to get that accomplished. And the city has already approved the funds for that, obviously, before we went into the contract. You know, we can, this is sort of off topic, but while we're talking about the mansion, we hosted the State of the City last Thursday. And that was the first time we sort of had our AV system is mostly done, which is great. There's still some punch items on the exterior that they're gonna do. They still need to paint some of the railings that they put in that you probably maybe have noticed are still the silver, sort of the base coat, and they need to paint it black, some different brick stuff. But you know, it's 99% done and operational, and that's been exciting. We're learning how to use the equipment, but it's been good. Any questions on any of that?
very nice. I think it'll be great for more corporations to come in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Lunch programs.
And we added acoustic dampening. I don't know if anyone
Oh,
was in there before.
Yeah.
We've had a couple events in there and it was really obvious that just the hard surfaces it
Yeah.
just bounced. And we added acoustics in both spaces. One is less obvious, what we call the carriage court. I'm sorry, the courtyard. We call the courtyard, which is the area furthest north. We used to drive through it. That has the glass ceiling. There's not a lot of great places to put these sort of acoustic panels without it really impacting the aesthetics. But they did a really good job with that.
That's it from the voice and wind.
No, it prevents it from echoing and it makes it really hard to hear and understand people if you don't. And it is noticeably better. And in the garage, it's these panels that are sort of hanging from the ceiling. And aesthetically, it works. Frankly, what's above it is just mechanical sort of painted mechanical lines and pipes. So it's good. And the company did a really good job. They're really responsive. There's a couple of issues we had when they put it in that the backside, so they're all white to match the ceiling, but the backside of these panels in what we call the garage were yellow, and the light was reflecting off of it, so it created this yellow tint on the ceiling. And we were like, this is not gonna work, and they came right back and painted the backside of it. We're great. It looks a lot better. So I do have some more business.
Okay,
That's all right.
sure, go ahead.
Jeffrey Park landscape plan, we met with Ann and Barb Triffett and Elena Andrews, met, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, to discuss what, we have a grant for, which is her to put together a landscape plan and have landscape improvements along the drive into the mansion, focusing on the north side where they cleared out a whole bunch of sort of undergrowth that was by and large invasive honeysuckle. Which looks 1,000 times better, but to put some intentional plantings along the north side of the drive. We had a lot of great discussion about the circle as another focal point for this landscape plan, and a bed along Clifton Avenue by the pool. So those are the three, cascading wall back. Those are the three areas. We had a lot of great discussion. I appreciate Ann being there, and I appreciate Barb providing their feedback. Ultimately, I think we were pretty much all on the same page on everything except the circle, which there's a lot of good discussion on that, which is. Yeah. And Elena's going to provide us the 2 different options, which is what we sort of discussed for the circle. So she'll provide the 2 different options. The basic gist being one being more. I'm going to say understated, less vertical. Right now we have 4, well, we have 3 Japanese maple trees that are in the circle, and so one would be sort of going back to more just a manicured lawn and less vertical, and another would be sort of recreating to some extent what's there now with the Japanese maples and keeping those vertical elements there. And so we'll look at those 2 and figure out kind of what direction we want to go. From a time, you just give me an update. She's going to try to get it to us in the next 2 weeks. And to me, what makes some sense, so there's a couple of things, is that the Jeffrey family is having their 5-year, they do every 5 years, although this is an odd year because of COVID. 5-year family reunion on Memorial Weekend. So we'd love to have some of these improvements in place by then. That's a tight window. We'll see if that works. What I would like to do in terms of sort of the procedure of how this will work is obviously we'll bring these designs to the board for the board to make the ultimate decision, approval, and whatever design we'll move forward with. Before that, it will have. My hope is we'll have an opportunity to have the tree commission to look at it and give technical sort of feedback to the board to consider. Again, tree commission doesn't make the decision on that. They have a lot of sort of technical knowledge on their board. So having them look at it, give any feedback for the board to then consider in terms of what the board wants to do ultimately with the plan. So presumably, I'm hoping she'll be able to present, Elena will be able to present it at our May 4th meeting. I think it's And if we can get to a point where we can approve it, I should take a step back. I would also provide it to the rec board in advance. That won't be the first time you see it. So whenever we get it, whenever it goes to tree commission, which might be 2 weeks earlier, then you guys would also get a copy of that.
So this will be what's going to, the proposals for the circle. That
The
would be-
circle and the drive on the north side. The circle will be 2 options. The drive on the north will have I think a fairly defined plan, but obviously if there's thoughts on plant material or the massings of that plant material, then obviously the board can give feedback on that. We can make adjustments. That's entirely possible. The circle is going to be the one that's more like, hey, which of these 2 options?
Trees are not trees.
Trees, basically, yeah.
You can guess right.
And so the other ones will be pretty fleshed out and ready for sort of more nitpicking sort of.
So the trees that are there in either option are going to be torn down, or are they
Not
dying?
necessarily. So here's, I'll get into the crux a little bit. So we have one tree that was taken down within the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, late last year, I think. There's 4 in there. We're 4 in there. 2 of them were older and 2 of them were replaced within the last 5 or 6 years, I would guess. So we have, we have 2 trees that look younger, 2 trees that are older, and the one that's been taken out, the other one will probably need to be taken out in the next year or so. It's probably realistically, it's on its last limb. And so then the question is, how do we, moving forward, how do we sort of stitch that sort of back together? And it's possible that stitching is, we take it all out and start over, but it includes putting trees back in.
Okay.
Or you can put two trees.
And look at buying.
You're not trying to make judges or lobbying or anything.
No. Well, what I'm saying is one option. What I'm saying is in both cases, if we're going to still have trees in there, there's 2 ways to approach that. One is take them all out and start over with trees, presumably Japanese maples again, because I think we've all really enjoyed those there. But that you start over, so you have like.
Oh, see, I didn't realize there was an option to
Or
plant
we,
new Japanese maples there. I thought it was more, well, we'll see what the option.
we'll see what it is. But I think in our discussion, it was, if we want to have trees, there's 2 ways to look at sort of stitching those trees together, which is buy bigger trees to replace the ones that we have now, which obviously is a cost associated with it, or.
The ones you have and buy bigger ones. to
Yeah,
replace
yeah.
them.
That's what- yes.
probably,
That's what I'm saying, or,
I like that.
which is a possibility, presumably there'll be a cost that's different because buying a bigger tree is
Sure.
an exponential cost in terms of that. But, or you look at, even potentially, taking those trees out and moving them somewhere else and bringing in 4 that are similar in age and size and starting sort of that process over again. So, or that's one approach, or we don't go back with sort of those vertical elements, we go to something else. So those will be the 2 options that are given. How we get there with the tree side will be, I'm not sure what you'll do on that, whether.
And what if we can't come to an agreement on that, then what will you do?
We have an odd board, we have an odd number of board members.
Okay. What else do we have?
So- So we'll have to, I think the board does this is up to you guys, but I think the board does a great job of working together to find a way to get as close to consensus as possible, but.
Have half it with trees and half.
You get this half. The splitting of the baby, right? We'll just,
And me and everybody go look and see how beautiful the trees are gonna be this spring.
yes,
Just take
yes,
one.
the lobbying has started.
Nice. I do love a Japanese maple.
They're beautiful.
I'm
Yeah,
very
they're
sad.
pretty.
I agree. Japanese maple is
They
a
are gorgeous.
beautiful tree.
I think we have 4 in our small lot.
Yeah.
Mike, random question, how bad is the honeysuckle invasion at Jeffrey?
It's not great, but I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to keep, we spent a lot of time on it. We've had a lot of volunteer groups that have come in and worked on it. The bloomers have done a great job with the upfront on trying to eliminate that. Ron's done a pretty good job of trying to deal with it in the woods in the back.
This spring particularly.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because one of the difficulties with the honeysuckle, especially given that we're on the creek's edge, is it does provide some erosion protection.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult thing to take the honeysuckle out unless you're putting something back in to help with erosion in the hillside, and especially where we're at, there's a big elevation change.
Yeah.
Right there at the creek at Jeffrey Park, and so it's sort of a double-edged sword, and it's something that, you know, we need to continue to think about, planting stuff along the creek to help with erosion as we take honeysuckle out.
Yeah, especially since it's been so high these last few
Yeah.
years. It's really
Keeps flooding.
changed
Yeah.
so much.
The mayor had a chart on the water levels over the last 3 years in Allen Creek, and it's just, and everyone, you know, the context of his presentation was on flooding in basements. But it was just, it's amazing the levels
Yeah,
compared to what we've seen historically over the last 25 years, frankly.
I get little goosebumps every time rain is showing for days.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess we've had that was about water levels, and sometimes I'm like, is the water level up because we're putting more water into there, or is it up because there's more rain?
Right.
Seems like we've had a lot more rain
Yeah.
and a lot more heavy storms and a lot more,
In a condensed period
yeah,
of time.
in a short period
It's all
of time.
about that quick downpour. That's what
Yeah.
And saturated ground already.
Quick plug on Bexy Bloomers, they're gonna start up again. We have been meeting with them regularly. They would love anyone from board or city council that has any interest in coming over and spending a couple hours on Thursday mornings. They're looking for any volunteers that they can get, and
Planting, is that what they're doing? Or
They're doing
just
everything.
Cleaning up and.
they're doing, you know, look, this first year, it is a lot of just maintenance, general maintenance that needed to happen. As they get done more of that, it'll be more sort of manicured sort of attention. But there'll be weed pulling. I mean, we'll have to be dealing with weeds. We'll deal with weeds every year. There'll be some planting that'll be a part of that.
Not along the path.
No.
Everyone go outside.
Yes, I mean, we've had those conversations. We don't, right now, we don't have a lot of planned plantings for them. I mean, even this design that we're talking about out front is we expect that to be done by a grounds crew, not, you know, done by a vendor, yard barbers or someone else, not necessarily. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, and they could plant some annuals or perennials there.
Yeah.
Enhance that, and then also prevent the weeds from coming back.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of new landscape with the mansion project along the, you know, along the east side of the building that will need to be maintained. There's a lot more sort of area of wheat that will be weeded along that and the north side, frankly, too. So I'm sure we'll keep them busy. Yeah, I'm sure that'll keep them very busy. They've also been involved in, hopefully people have noticed the urns that they planted. Julie Kessler, shout out to Julie Kessler, who has really done it. She's done a tremendous job on planting those and is doing a seasonal thing with that. And it's been a really nice addition.
Are they gonna do the beautiful, where did these planters come from out front?
You know what's so funny? Kristen sent me a text, Kristen Schweitzer, who's managing this, sent me a text today and goes, was this your doing? And I'm like, didn't know they were gonna be there. I think the city, I don't know if they had some extras that they were like, this is.
Bay Shore, yeah, because he's putting
Yeah.
out more bike racks right now. Maybe he was like.
So,
who
yeah,
needs
we need
the
to get some plant
planters?
material in here. So that's
Yeah.
exciting.
I mean, those are
It's a
expensive
nice-
planters, those huge planters. Are really-
It'll be a nice improvement. We get some nice flowers in there.
Yeah, it really, is. It's good. So maybe,
All
is
right.
that a Bloomers project?
But their focus is over at Jeffrey,
Got it.
but, you know, beautification funds from the
Yeah.
community foundation is a
Yep.
possibility for sure.
Anything else?
Not at all.
Anyone else have any new or old business they want to bring up? The motion to adjourn, second,
Second.
all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
guys.
And thank you again for all your support with Barb. I know it's been a lot for her. It's been
I
a-
would never gotten my kids.
it's been a tough couple weeks for her, I know. Yes, I think she is. She was not happy to, she's not one to